I found the simplest and coolest way of thinking about attachment styles recently, and it just completely changed how I approach this whole topic. It was super useful for me. It's based on a model that was developed by psychologists Kim Bartholomew and Leonard Horowitz, who theorized that the four attachment styles, those are secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful, could be defined based on just two questions. Does the person have a positive or negative view of themselves? And then, does the person have a positive or negative view of other people? There are two answers to each of those two questions, which means four possible combinations. And those four combinations map really nicely to the four attachment styles. People who have a relatively positive view of both themselves and other people are more securely attached. People who have a positive view of other people, but a negative view of themselves, are relatively anxious. They think that they can't depend on themselves. Then people who have a positive view of themselves, but a negative view of other people, tend to be more avoidant. I can't depend on them might be something that they think. And then people who have a negative view of both are fearful. Everything is undependable. I love this model because it both makes everything really simple and straightforward, while also having a lot of really interesting insight and nuance to it. For example, what does a negative view or a positive view really mean? And to me, I think it gets to trust. Can I rely on someone or something to meet my needs? Can I depend on them? And we can go through each of the four attachment styles and think about what that looks like in really practical terms. People who are securely attached tend to be comfortable with both intimacy and autonomy, being by themselves and being with others, because they feel like they can rely on both themselves or other people to meet their needs. They don't need to be either autonomous or intimate all the time, and they can comfortably swing back and forth from one to the other. And then people who are anxious feel like they can only really get what they need from other people, and they can't rely on themselves to meet those needs. This tends to lead to a lot of clinging behaviors where they become overinvested and overly dependent on their close relationships. Then people who are avoidant are confident that they can meet their own needs, but not so confident that they can rely on other people. This tends to make them compulsively self-reliant, often because being genuinely emotionally intimate with somebody else is fucking terrifying, and after all, you can't get let down if you don't put yourself out there in the first place. And then people who are fearful feel like everything is unreliable, and often they aren't sure that they can get their needs met at all. And this can happen because people with a more fearful attachment style tend to come from families or just have a history in environments that were chaotic or disorganized, downright traumatic maybe. And this creates this really painful combination of low self-esteem on the one hand and high attachment anxiety on the other hand. This means that they can feel both dependent on other people while having really intense fears of rejection, and also a lot of uncertainty that other people are actually going to come through for them. You might already be thinking about this, but when I started unpacking this model, one of the best parts about it was that it felt like it came with a lot of really clear and ready-made advice for what people can do in order to work with their unique attachment style and move toward more secure forms of attachment, secure and healthy forms of relating to other people. For anxiously attached people, the key target is improving their view of themselves, thinking of themselves increasingly as a reliable person who can meet their own needs without needing to depend on others. And this isn't easy, but it could include learning to trust themselves and getting more comfortable with being on their own. And then for avoidantly attached people, the key target is improving their view of others, particularly by learning how to trust and rely on other people when appropriate. One way that a person might be able to do this is by running small experiments, where they gave up just a little bit of control and see what happens. And then if something turns out in a way that they don't like, can they have a calm conversation about their needs with the other person, with the person that they feel like let them down? Then for fearfully attached people, they need to feel like it's possible for their needs to be met at all. They typically don't have a lot of experiences with those needs being met, and they often come from environments where when bad things happened, they were totally catastrophic. So many of the people I know with more fearful attachment styles started working with them just by developing an underlying feeling of safety, particularly by internalizing the many moments that we all have in the course of a normal life where we truly are safe. Like right now, you can take a breath and go, I'm actually okay. Maybe things aren't perfect, maybe my body's a little uncomfortable, but I'm okay. I'm going on living. And increasing that underlying feeling of all right now can then make it a lot easier to start learning how to trust both ourselves and other people, a little bit at a time. And this is in large part because the risks associated with something bad happening are just annoying rather than totally devastating. I want to emphasize at the end here 2 really key points whenever you talk about attachment theory or attachment styles. And the first one is that our attachment style isn't our fault. Attachment is a combination of nature and nurture. Some people just pop out a little bit more avoidant or a little bit more anxious. But one of the key findings in the early research on attachment is that kids are incredibly responsive to their environments. And the things that happen to us early on, the circumstances that we found ourselves in, just aren't things that we have a whole lot of influence over. And then second, our attachment style isn't our destiny. The fact that we currently have certain patterns of behavior is real, but that doesn't mean that we have to be a prisoner to them. And in the research, the jury's a bit out on whether it's possible for a person to completely change their attachment style altogether. That might be a really high bar, but it's definitely possible for us to be aware of our tendencies and our blind spots and actively communicate them to other people. Conceptual models like attachment, and even this really simple version of attachment that I'm talking about here, tend to make clear distinctions between categories. There are 4 boxes. These are the only boxes, and guess what? You're one of them. You're one of them all the time, and sorry, you don't get to pick which box you're in. But the truth is that in reality, it's a lot fuzzier than that. And research has shown that it's possible for a person to have different kinds of attachment relationships with different groups of people. I was probably really securely attached with my parents as a kid, for example, but I had a much iffier relationship with my peers. And wherever we are right now on the spectrum, from secure on one side to insecure on the other, it's really possible for us to move toward a greater sense of security. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can hit the like and subscribe button. That really helps me out. And let me know down in the comments what you've done, if anything, to work with your personal attachment style. And hey, if there's a different topic that you would like me to cover, let me know. Until next time, thanks for watching.